We've got these unreleased recordings. Where have they been?
They've been in one of two archives, one being Led Zeppelin's archive, one being my own. They would have been the reference tapes that I took home during the recording process. It goes from just a basic track with just the three instruments playing, which would be the sort of thing that Robert may have gone home with to work on his lyrics, etc., to an alternate mix. For example, the Whole Lot of Love, you can tell that's a very, very early mix of the night and of the enthusiasm of everything that's going on at that point. But the thing is that it captures the whole energy of what that is about. However, it's that track that gets used. New vocals go on it. There's a lot more that is going to go in that middle section. There's choruses, lots of vocals go on because there's choruses. There's a slide guitar. There's all manner of sort of bells and whistles that goes onto that sort of track to make it the song Whole Lot of Love as we all know it, with a middle section that is put in there so radio can't play it and they're not allowed to edit it.
So it tells us a lot about the evolution of a particular song.
Well, it sort of does with that, because when someone hears that, they'll appreciate it for what it is. But when it comes to the first chorus and it isn't there, and these trademark parts aren't there, then you sort of realise just how important all of those additional layers and the filigree work is.
I want to talk to you about Keys to the Highway and Trouble in Mind. Tell me where and when that was recorded.
Okay, that was recorded in this Studio One of Olympic, and Robert and I went in there. Wasn't for the other band members. We were going to go in there, and what I particularly wanted to do was do something which was in the sort of genre of the country blues artist, particularly sort of Mississippi Fragment Dow, but to make it actually sort of slightly unnatural and surreal. That really is there to show just exactly how Robert and I were so close in the way that we worked, you know, the interplay between us.
What's it been like revisiting these songs, some of which were recorded more than 40 years ago?
It's reassuring. It's reassuring to hear all of this stuff and to hear the passion which every person in that band is applying to their role within it. You've just got four incredible musicians that play as a band together, which is unusual. But not only just managed to tick over as a band, we were able to start challenging the whole musical establishment. I knew that there was a lot that we could do collectively to sort of move the whole boundaries of what the accepted music was at the time, or the listening pattern, you know, that we'd always be that step ahead and challenging. And with that, we challenged ourselves, and I think that we really accomplished what we set out to do.
That's fantastic. So you listen back to these and you think, God, we were good.
It's undeniable that we're good. The fact is, well, no, that is. I'm blowing the trumpet on behalf of the band, not for myself here. This was the real deal, and the band was the real deal.
Listening back to all this material, at any point did it make you feel old?
I'm quite a realist about age. Let's put it another way. I don't think there's a surviving member of Led Zeppelin who could live at the pace of our 1969 agenda, when we were just really hard at it. But then we were young, you know, we were relatively young. So did it make me feel old? No, it didn't. It made me feel even more young at heart.
Why have you done this now?
Well, it's an ageist thing.
No.
Because I don't want to die and have somebody else do it. I want to make sure that it's done because I'm more authoritative about what was done in the first place. No, why? Because we've had a summing up. The way I look at things is not the way other people look at it. But we've had a summing up of where the members of Led Zeppelin are, given our twilight years or whatever, and that's the O2. And I think we did a really, really good presentation of ourselves. We did a great job. However, with the studio albums and the sort of streaming and all this sort of thing, and the way that some of the, on MP3 files, the music sounds like it's been remixed. I thought there's a case here for actually the last time that the music was remastered for CD was 22 years ago or whatever it is. I don't think that's insulting the public's intelligence to do it again. However, we've also got this other material which it deserves to be heard, because I just know that people who have listened to Led Zeppelin, not heard it, but listened to it, will just find so much pleasure in hearing the celebration of music that's going on in these performances, because it's performance art.
This is going to raise hopes among your fans that you may tour again.
Oh, I know, it's a wish phantasma.
Not true? No hope?
Well, should we be not living in hopes and dreams? Should we just look at the facts? The O2 was 7 years ago. Each and every one of us could be proud of us, and ourselves, and certainly Jason Bonham, and his father would have been proud of him. And there's all that about the O2, but that's 7 years ago, and there hasn't been any movement, so it's unlikely. I certainly don't want to be exhumed to do it.
One question, though. I know Emily Evis has said that you're top of her wish list for Glastonbury. Would you ever consider just one big gig like that?
I'm not the one to be asking.
Of course you are. You can help make it happen.
I don't sing. I'm a guitarist. Do you want me to, go and do an
You'd be up for
instrumental
it then.
version?
You'd be up for
I'm
it.
sure people would love to hear it. But it's quite clear what the situation is. There's no point in asking me to be hypothetical questions. It is what it is. And it is 7 years since the O2. And I'm more surprised than anybody else that there hasn't been a Led Zeppelin tour. It is what it is. And so thank goodness that these things are coming out.
These new recordings, which haven't been released before, how did they come to light?
In the life of every musician, there are the various stages of development of songs, and these are little sort of cameos of that process, So they came to light because there was a lot of trumpeting about the quality of the sound of older music, and how it deteriorates the more it's reprocessed. I'd spent quite a lot of time in America, and I was watching the way that everybody was really enjoying vinyl again. Music coming back in the form it originally was in, which means you've got more bottom end, more top end, you've got a lot more sonic landscape. And kids, younger generations want to hear the music as close to how it was in the studio. So it was a mixture of that desire to hear it again in a really beautiful, sonic form. And also going back and checking these little vignettes out and seeing what they're like, And
when you did check them out, was there anything you'd forgotten about? Anything that you sat up and thought, good Lord?
Well, I forgot about the just where I was at as a performer in those days, and how my enthusiasm sometimes got in the way of finesse. And I'd listen to it and go, wow, why didn't I shut up a bit, It's... But it's of the time, and it's of the enthusiasm, and it's of the development of quite an amazing quartet of players.
Yeah. That's interesting. Where were you at the time?
Well, I was just escaping a career in asphalt laying in the West Midlands, and having given up the chartered accountancy plan, and I was just hot for anything. And I was really inspired by the West Coast movement and the kind of expressive singing of Janis Joplin and people like that, and the music that surrounded me at that time was so panoramic and beautiful that I kind of overcooked it. If I listen to it now, I go, whoa, that boy was 19, and that's what was going on,
What about when you listen to some of the lyrics you wrote? Do they seem the lyrics of a young man?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you can't. I spent about 10 years apologizing to myself. And then I realized that it was just what it was. It was great. It was, my record collection began when I was 12, and I'd listening to American rock and roll and rockabilly and black rockabilly and blues and stuff. And it was all baby, baby. There was so much of that stuff. And what kind of worldview did I have at that time? Did I have anything to say? I wasn't particularly eloquent, and I wasn't worldly wise. And I loved the genre of rock and roll. So when I listen to it, I go, yeah, he had a way to go yet.
Can I talk to you about a couple of specific tracks that I've heard?
Yeah, if I can remember them.
A new version, well, not a new version, but an alternative version of Whole Lotta Love.
From a vocal standpoint, I was using a different personality. And I was leaning very heavily on Steve Marriott, who was probably the best expressive singer of the time. So I was using the little bits and pieces of trills on the end of words and stuff like that. But that was just 3 minutes of that, and then 3 minutes of something else. I mean, when we study these things now, we do exactly the wrong thing. These things aren't to study. They're to turn up very loud and say, hey, once upon a time, everything was just as easy as this.
Let me talk to you about Keys to the Highway and Trouble in Mind, blues medley, very different from Whole Lotta Love. And that led me to wonder whether you ever feel that the breadth of what Led Zeppelin achieved has been overlooked.
No, I think the thing is that you can hear the way it's going down, that it's part of a session when we obviously got to the end of what we were doing as a band, and Jimmy and I were just fooling around with the stuff that we would play at home. Yeah. Maybe the songs that I would play when I went back home by Big Bill Brunsey or whatever it would be. But no. That element of Led Zeppelin was evident throughout the whole of the existence, because the blues is not something that has to be a traditional blues form. It's part of the way that you play, and nothing was premeditated really. But we did, Jimmy and I at that time did spend quite a lot of time up in Merioneth and Snowdonia, trying to open the whole game up musically, and the writing styles were developing then. I was coming of age a bit better and a bit more lucid, expressive, if you like. So Trouble in Mind, yeah, A Keys to the Highway, I guess it was just a little diagonal.
When you listen back to some of these outtakes and things you were up to, do you think, gosh, we were good?
No, not really. I just think, hey, that was a good day. You know, I mean, everybody was good. It was a very vibrant time. Nobody was aiming for the playlist on the BBC or anything like that. We weren't hoping that guys who washed their cars on a Sunday morning in Surbiton were going to pick our song and play it. If you think about it, at that time, Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac were, you know, that whole British blues boom around that time was pretty interesting. We took it a stage further and went a little bit to the left, and that gave us an amazing catapult into America, because we were alongside The Aeroplane and Big Brother and Janis and Kaleidoscope and all those bands that did extend their music and was a lot more trippy, yeah, which really went with the times. I mean, America was in disarray. The youth culture was at war with the government, with the Vietnam policies, and so the music was the panacea of all things, far more intensely than in the UK.
This is going to raise hopes among your fans that you will perform live again. What are the chances? You've rolled your eyes.
0.